Hello, my friends. Welcome to another live broadcast. I am so excited because today we have animal communicator Danielle MacKinnon. And I know that so many of you have questions about what happens to the spirit of your fur baby when he or she crosses over and transitions to that other side. And so I reached out to Danielle and asked her if she'd be a guest on our show, and she was very gracious and accepted this request. And so she will be taking questions from you today. However, she's not doing reading, so I want to make that very clear. She will, however, be asking she will be answering your more generic questions about what happens with pets in the afterlife, if you'll be reunited with them, all those questions that you have, she will answer for you. So Danielle, thank you for hanging out with us today.
We got chatting. We almost missed going live.
We did, yeah. We were talking and I was like, oh crap, we're going live in 3 seconds. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, when did you first know you were an animal communicator? How did all this get started? Like, just give us the 411, girl.
When did I first know? I first knew back like 20 years ago. But I grew up very, very sensitive, as I'm sure you feel like you are. And but I thought it was weird. I thought it was crazy. Right? Did that happen to you? You were very sensitive, but everybody kept being like, you need to learn how to get over this and chill out. And I was also the one who was very sensitive, knew what people were thinking and feeling when they didn't tell me. And then I was also the one who I had something like 28 hamsters, 2 parakeets,
wow,
a guinea pig, a rabbit, a dog. Like, I was like animal person. So I didn't understand what all that meant. I was told growing up, no, you're not sensitive. There's not what is it? People who are psychic are con men. You know, that's how I grew up. So I just thought I was weird and I was hypersensitive. When my dog got sick, like 20 or so years ago, is when I discovered that this was a real thing, because my friend said, take her to the pet psychic. And sure enough, bring her to the pet psychic. And the pet psychic said, yep, she's sick. She ate corn cobs. She says she ate the corn cobs because she was anxious because you and your husband were fighting about your mother. And we were fighting about my mother-in-law. But at that point, I was like, no way, I'm totally in. I want to do this thing. And I think I have been doing it. It was like seeing it in action that made me realize that this is a real thing. So I kind of started from there, and I started very quickly. 20 something years ago, there was like not really any animal communicators. The web wasn't the same. Yeah. Like you couldn't do this. There was none of this. So I didn't have anyone to. I had that Ted Andrews Spirit Animals book. I got that book and I read that. But there was one guy who was doing a class. So I took the class and then basically was like, this is amazing. And I started my business doing this because I was in the corporate world and it was sucking me dry.
Yeah. Well, I think the corporate world does that to people who are, sensitives or psychic in some way, because we come here knowing on some level that our sensitivity actually serves some type of a purpose. I think we know that on a soul level. And so when we are in a corporate environment where it's all about money, it's like that almost goes against our innate nature.
For me, it was because I was in the marketing and I was really good at reading what people needed. Didn't know I was intuitive, and I was really good at motivating people because I could tap into them. Didn't know I was tapping into them. So I was really good at it, but I wasn't using all of what I came here to do in the way that fulfilled my soul.
Right. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about what you've learned as an animal communicator, because obviously people have such strong bonds to their fur children. I've had friends who have both human babies and their fur kids, and they'll tell me like they love them both the same. They feel guilty stating that, but it's the truth. They love them both the same. And so I think a lot of people have I want to say, several different notions and beliefs on what happens when a person dies and when they make that transition. But there's some hesitancy and confusion as to what happens when an animal dies. So why do you think that is? Why are people so headstrong on what happens when a person passes away versus when an animal transitions?
I think that people don't understand the connection that people allow themselves to have with animals, or that animals kind of push upon us. Animals want us to learn what unconditional love is, and our animals give us that unconditional love. And it's often overlooked. We think, oh, this is my companion animal. I love this animal. It's all good. But we don't realize until the animal crosses over, until we lose them, how strong that bond was. And then on top of that, the world out there who hasn't lost an animal or hasn't experienced this unconditional love looks at you like, you're an idiot. What are you doing? This is a dog. This is, I remember when my dog passed away, one of my dogs passed away in 2000, I took 3 days off from work. And when I came back to work, my boss looked at me and she said, I feel like you're taking advantage of me. I mean, she was really offended, deeply offended that.
Wow.
And I came back with sunken eyes. I'd been crying. It was just really, really hard. And she's just a wonderful example of how so many people don't get it. And I actually think that's why people seek out information about animals that have crossed over, because there isn't a ton out there. There's a lot of information about like cool stories. I got a message. I had this thing happen. It was amazing. But what is actually going on? What are the animals doing? How is this happening? What is the process they experience? That information isn't really out there. So that's kind of my, like, where I love to give people information. And I have no idea what question you just asked me.
I asked you answered it, so good job. I had asked, why do people have firm beliefs on what happens when a person transitions versus when a pet transitions? But I think you answered that beautifully. It's because not everyone on this planet are pet lovers, and even people who have pets don't necessarily love animals. They can have a dog or a cat because the kids wanted it, or they think that's what you're supposed to do. So you answered that question. So a lot of people wonder if the spirit of their dog or their cat or their gerbil or their mouse or their bird or whoever is near them. So what are some signs that people might get that would validate that the soul of their fur baby is still near them?
It's funny that so many people wonder, because a lot of the time they're asking, how do I know? And they already have the signs there, but they're ignoring them because they want a bigger sign. They want it to be more obvious. So like one good sign is when you're just doing something, say you're in the kitchen and you're washing dishes, or you're sitting there watching TV, and suddenly you start thinking of your animal that's crossed over. They enter your brain for no reason. It's not like you just saw a question over here, or you just saw an animal that looks like them.
Right.
This is a really strong sign that your animal is nearby, but it's probably the hardest one to trust, because people say, well, I miss her, so of course I would be thinking about her. And that's what I find the biggest challenge is trusting the signs, because what they don't do is you don't wake up in the morning and there's a book right there or a video of your animal visiting you. It's not, they want you to also have that type of faith in what they're doing, and to sit back and allow that connection to happen. So one would be showing up. Another really common one, and you know how people do this, so it'll be interesting. Does that happen with people?
Absolutely, all the time. All the time, yeah.
How about hearing their name? Their name. If it's a common name, waiting until you hear it 3 times is usually good. But a lot of the time, it'll be a not common name, and you do still get to hear it. I saw a comment on my Facebook my YouTube, and someone said, but my dog has an uncommon name. I'm never going to hear it. Well, if you think like that, it will not happen.
Right.
But yeah, hearing the name in whatever format, or seeing the name.
Right. Well, yeah, sometimes one of the things that I find interesting about visitations in general, whether it is an animal or a person, is it can be literally so in someone's face, and it's like they're still hesitant to admit it. So, a few years ago, when I was with another man was my boyfriend, not the wonderful person I'm with today, but my ex-boyfriend. He had a dog that had gotten very, very sick, and we had to put her down. It was just very tragic and very sad. And my boyfriend at the time, my ex-boyfriend, supposedly didn't believe in ghosts and spirit and visitations. Although one time he saw a ghost and he freaked out, huh?
And you were with him?
I know, right? Well, I'm not with him anymore, so
that makes sense.
So a few days, I think it was actually only 2 days after the dog had been put down. My ex-boyfriend's name is Jim. Jim comes running downstairs and he's like, "Oh my gosh, Nicole, you're not gonna believe it." And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "I was sitting at my desk in my favorite chair, and I felt Sarah brush up next to me." Like he felt her come up against his leg. Yeah. And I was just like, that is so precious and so sweet. And the next day, it's like he was already disputing it. He was already like, well, it could have been, I don't remember what excuses he was coming up with, but I was like, do you have any idea how much energy it took for her to do that? Like, don't take this away from her.
That's a really, really good point. They have to put a lot of effort into looking at you, figuring out, okay, there's Nicole. What's the best way I can channel my energy to get this message through? And when we spend our time negating the message, talking ourselves out of the message, it actually it makes it harder for the animal to keep sending messages. They'll keep going, but eventually kind of, it gets tiring for them. They're doing a lot of work.
Yeah, it is. So Tanya B, this is left a comment that I think is pretty cool. It's not a question, but I love her comment. She says, "I got the best visitation dream for my dog Dolly." First of all, I love that energy because you're like, I got the best visitation dream. I've heard her bark after she passed and heard a dog walking in the kitchen. Really? So would you say those are normal-ish?
Yeah. So hearing a sound that you associate with your animal, my dog Bella will often bark in the background, but it's clearly her bark. She has this raspy bark. I know it's her bark. It's not a sign when you're like, well, that could have been the neighbor because he sounds, they make sure that it's a sound that you associate with them, even right down to like a certain whimper or a certain nail scratching. They look, it's just the coolest thing. They go, all right, there's Nicole. This one, I'm going to give her this one because she's going to know exactly what it is. They want to dial in their messages for us to receive them. And the more we are cool with that and embrace it, the more messages we get.
Yeah, it really is awesome. So Champagne has a question. She says, say, for example, a dog passes away. Can they reincarnate as a cat or do they not reincarnate? I think that's what I think basically, do animals reincarnate and can they switch species?
So this is what they've told me. So all I know is from my animal communication readings.
Sure.
Animals stay as animals and human souls stay as humans. So an animal will reincarnate again and again as part of our soul family. They may be a horse. They may be a dog. They may be a fish. They're not going to become a human because humans haven't mastered unconditional love and animals have. So they don't want to come over and be with us, be a human it's like going backwards. So they reincarnate per whatever is necessary, whatever their soul decides on. But the sucky part that nobody likes my answer to is that when I ask animals about reincarnation, what they say is they do reincarnate, but they don't reincarnate usually in our same lives. which is hard. I want him back. How many years until he comes back? But what they say is it's kind of like when my mom passes, I don't expect her to reincarnate back into this lifetime. I have more work to do.
Yeah.
And what's kind of cool, though, about it, when you can get your head around the fact that the animal's not coming back in this lifetime, is that what the animals are doing with people who are open-minded and kind of doing that self-awareness, being conscious, is the animals are working with their humans from the other side, which is actually really cool. So they're not just sending messages, they're helping open us up, they're helping drive us toward our passions, they're helping us get out of bad relationships from the other side.
Yeah. It's amazing what they can do.
I know.
It is. Well, and it just goes to show how much love they truly have for us when they continue, because I find that with sometimes the animals and bonds from an animal, whether they're still here on the other side, it can be so much stronger than what you have with the human, which sounds horrible, but that's how much love they have.
But that's because they're trying to teach us unconditional love. Somebody wrote on my YouTube channel something like, I feel so bad because I don't think he knew how much I loved him. And that's actually, I shouldn't say somebody, I saw one recently, but that's like a main thing. And what I always tell people is that they know how much you love them, even if you aren't showing it in that moment. Even if you're going through a hard time in your life, they're looking within. They're not judging us based on, did we take them for enough walks? Did we brush their teeth enough? Da, da, da. I mean, they want that part, of course, but it's really coming from a different place in them.
Right. Absolutely. So Joy has a question. She asks, what's the best way to deal with people who are insensitive towards your connection with your pet? In her case, it's her relatives, even during times of loss. That's a great question.
It is a great question. It really depends on your comfort with it depends on your comfort with how you want to talk about what you believe. So with my family members who aren't into what I do, whether I'm experiencing loss or I'm just talking about what I do for work, I don't need to go to those family members for that. I'll keep that kind of over here and go to places that are safe and that feel good. I don't want to share this loss that I'm experiencing with someone who's going to look at me and say, I feel taken advantage of. You should have come into work.
Right.
I don't need to go through that. So really carefully choosing where you share your pain. It doesn't mean you don't tell people, but where you really look for actual comfort. It's challenging.
Yeah, that's really good advice. That's good advice really for all areas of life too, because not everyone who smiles at you is your friend. There are some people who, like you and I were talking about, you and I have both had some interesting experiences over the last couple of weeks. And there's people who would tell us, basically, well, man up, get over it. Don't be so sensitive. And it's like, well, I am sensitive.
I can't not be me.
Right. So, Yanni has a really great question. So Yanni wants to know, does putting a dog down affect what happens in their afterlife?
That is a great question. And I've worked with, I don't know, thousands of animals that were getting ready to cross over or that had crossed over, and not a single one said, euthanasia is bad. No one has ever said that. In fact, they choose their method for passing. So when they're choosing their method for passing, sometimes they're saying to me, I'm going to need help with this and I want this vet. And sometimes they'll be like, I want this vet. I want it to be at home. I want this blanket. I want, they kind of have a whole spiel. And then it gives their human something to do. Cool. Okay. This is going to suck, but I'm going to feel good because I'm meeting their needs this way. Euthanasia is often part of it.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, it doesn't affect anything that happens in the afterlife. When I connect with an animal that's crossed over through euthanasia or through natural causes, they're not even concerned with how they died. That's not even a thing. A lot of the time they're like, I don't really want to talk about that. Let's go talk about her new boyfriend because whoa. So yeah.
Right. Well, yeah, actually I find that the same with human spirits though too. Like it's the people here who want to know about the death, but spirit on the other side, they usually don't want to talk about it. Yeah. And I don't know, and it's not because they're going to get re-traumatized, although maybe they will. I don't know. They've never mentioned that, but it's like, it's almost like they're like, we have a short span of time to connect, and this is not what we want to talk about. Like, you already know how we passed. We're over that now. Let's talk about, like you said, your new boyfriend or whatever.
And a lot of the time, we, as the person, we don't know how they passed. We don't know how that cat passed.
Yeah.
And so the person wants to know only that information. If I can know, I'll feel better. But it actually doesn't do anything. It actually doesn't help give closure. It doesn't further this person learning unconditional love. So it's kind of off track from what these animals want us to do.
Well, it's also one of those cases where you get the answer, but then you just have more questions.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to make sense of it. But there's some forms of grief and hurt and pain that will never make sense to us.
And a lot of people will then go down the road of, oh, well, if it was cancer, then I should have done this. I wish I'd done that. And the animals, when I'm connecting with them, they don't want their humans sitting in there in the I shoulds. They want their human learning how to live the best life they can. And the I shoulds don't accomplish that.
Right. So in the same vein, Nicole was asking, when animals do have to be put down, do they know how hard it is for us to make that decision and that we stayed with them?
So is the question, how would you take that question? Do they know how hard it is for us to be there during euthanasia?
I think it's just about making that decision, because I think there can be a lot of guilt sometimes associated with that. Like, should I allow this death to be natural? Am I being actually inhumane by putting my dog down? Because people feel like they're killing their dog. They don't see it as a merciful act. They see it as, I've killed my dog. I'm a horrible person. So do the animals on the other side, are they aware of that way of thinking, I guess?
So when animals plan their passing. So when an animal has done everything that animal came to do, which is help I'm talking about pets, help their humans in some way, they fulfilled their soul's purpose. When they have done that, it's time for them to cross over. And they may choose to cross over through old age. They may choose to cross over through getting hit by a car. They may choose to cross over through euthanasia or through a sickness, but all of it is a choice. So, and this is what they tell me again and again. If you can, as a human, take away our human, like, oh my God, dying is horrible, it means the end. We, so many of us have that fear. If you can kind of take that away and look at how animals look at it, they're choosing what is the best method that will continue to help my humans learn and grow that I can use to exit. So what happens is euthanasia is on that list, which means when they're choosing it, they do everything they can to direct you there. They'll send you a sign. They'll show you something on the TV. You'll hear something. You'll wake up in the middle of the night and be like, oh, it's time. Or they won't eat for 3 days, or whatever the sign is. They're going to do everything they can to make you think you thought of it, but you didn't. So even when it seems like you went through all this turmoil and you had to make this decision, the animal is the one who made you make that decision. There are no mistakes.
Yeah. So it was an agreement between the two of you. Yeah. So Sandy has a question. We're going to move this into more, I'm going to phrase it in a way that's more generic so everyone benefits from it. But she says, Danielle, I love your YouTube channel. That's always fun to hear, right?
Thank you.
My question is, does my beloved pet watch over me? Sometimes I swear I see her out of the corner of my eye. So I love this question because I think a lot of people wonder that same thing. So when our pets pass over, are they still watching over us?
So they're definitely still watching over us, and seeing your pet out of the corner of your eye where you're like, wait, that couldn't possibly have happened, is absolutely a way they show up for you. It happens to me a lot.
All right. And gosh, we have so many people in here sharing their stories. So I want to thank all of you for showing up and for sharing your stories and asking your questions. And I want you to know I'm doing my best to funnel through them. So if I miss you, please don't take it.
For somebody to tell their story of what they experienced, I can hear my voice. Why do I hear my voice?
Is it background from here?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I don't do well when I hear myself.
I didn't hear background earlier. Well, I can't find my earphones. Of course, this would happen midstream, right?
I'm just going to back up away from hearing my own self. We don't want me hearing my own self. And what were we talking about?
Well, I was looking through the comments because there's a lot of comments. And so I'm trying to find another question for you. There's plenty of them.
Is from Trisha. Is smell a common sign from your pet who has passed? And the answer is yes. Unfortunately, smell, although it's cool, smell is a sign that a lot of animals use. You know what, like we never washed our dog Bella. I know exactly what that dirty dog smell was. I know exactly, and I'm not going to get it mixed up with anybody else's dirty dog. That smell, she passed in 2014, so years ago, it still wafts by sometimes, and it's just her way of saying, hello, I'm here. So they can be good smells, they can be bad smells, but they'll also be always comforting smells. Like certain poop smells remind me of my other dog. It seems like it wouldn't be nice to smell poop smells psychically. But it makes me feel comforted. Oh, he's here.
Right. Rebecca shared a beautiful story, actually. She says, Kai basically raised me through an abusive childhood. She was there for me when my grandmother passed, and she stayed until my house was renovated. She was at least 20 when she passed.
Wow.
That's really beautiful. So I just wanted to give Kai a shout out, and I feel like Kai is still watching over her.
Well, that's something that they do a lot. They stay with us through a challenging time, demonstrating something like, well, okay, you have an abusive childhood, but I'm here for you. I'm showing you this unconditional love, and I'm helping you still maintain trust for a being.
Right. So we do have one question in here about basically the services you offer. So Fantasia wants to know, does Danielle do private readings?
No. But I teach animal communication, and I have certified animal communicators of like personally certified by me that I have hand taught on my website. So that's where you can get a reading, or just more of this.
Well, where can people find you? So if they want to find a animal communicator that is trustworthy, or even if they want to continue to get, tidbits from you, where can they go? How can they connect?
My website, DanielleMacKinnon.com. And there I have my online school there. I have all of my practitioners there. You can find readings there, as well as there's a ton of information about animals on the other side.
All right. And one last question, because I think this is a great question. It's from Maxwell Flowers. What can I do for my 2 other dogs missing my recently deceased dog?
Okay. Not a light one. So the first thing you want to do is actually take a look at yourself. And how are you living your life without the deceased dog? Because what happens a lot of the time is the animals that are still here, they're grieving the physical presence loss of the animal that's crossed over, but they're also grieving the difference in their life. When I was grieving for my one dog that crossed over, I know my dog that was still here wasn't getting the walks. We didn't have a new groove. And that's really hard. And so we've got an animal who's still here, who's tapping into me and feeling all my feelings, feeling all his feelings, and not having a life that's feeding him well. So start by looking at yourself, and then set out to kind of create your new lifestyle with the 2 that are still here.
Beautiful. All right. So I do want to thank Danielle, of course, for being here with us today. It was so fantastic to talk to you. Like that 30 minutes went by so fast. It did. Yeah. And so I also, of course, want to thank all of our live viewers today who were sharing their beautiful stories with us and asking their questions. And, we got to as many as we can. And I'm sure that we'll invite Danielle here again soon. So if I missed your question, you can bring it to the next time she's here. And also be sure that you follow Danielle here on YouTube. She has such a wonderful library. She has such a wonderful library here on YouTube. So how can people find you on YouTube?
I think it's just YouTube/Danielle MacKinnon. Yeah, that was good. Thank you.
Of course. And what kind of videos? Like what's your most popular videos there right now?
A lot of the videos are how to handle the grief of an animal passing, or what's happening on the other side, or what's the process that an animal spirit goes through in order to cross over. So they're really geared toward people who are experiencing loss or about to experience loss.
Fantastic. Yeah, because obviously people have a lot of questions about that. And as you said, there's not a lot of information about that. So I want to thank you for being that person who steps up and answers these questions and gets that information out there, because you're healing a lot of people by the work that you do. So
thank you.
So keep at it, girl. All right. So thank you again for joining us. Again, that was Danielle MacKinnon. You can find her on her website at daniellemackinnon.com, and also follow her here on YouTube. So be sure that you join me next Thursday. I will have Ariana as a special guest, and her channel is The Realm of Prosperity. She's going to be here to talk about the higher self and how you can connect with your higher self to get in touch with your psychic abilities, to maybe learn more about your past lives and things of that nature. So thank you again for joining me today. If this is your first time watching one of my videos or being involved in a live, thank you for being here today. And please remember to hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell icon so you can be notified of new videos in the future. Thanks for being here, and I will see you next time.